This is part 27. I took a look this time. Stop laughing. Yeah, I know.
You guys said I laugh too much. Yeah, okay, well.
Yeah, well, is it deference?
Too much for who?
Right. You're laughing at us, not with us. I understand that, Larry, but I still have to have you on since I get the Joneses for that kind of treatment ever since the Collins brothers went away.
Oh, my God. Don't compare me with those people.
Oh, no. No.
I don't say stuff like humanitizing the eschaton because I really can't pronounce all that. Don't know what it means anyway.
Who does? I mean, you can use that. You can use that in conversation a lot.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, okay.
Yeah, maybe they were trying to impress the chicks or something. I don't know what it was.
Well, that didn't work, did it?
Yeah, it didn't work.
Anyway, all right, never mind. It's my fault. I admit I did that. Just one interesting thing I just want to share with you. We use this as an icebreaker, like we need one. But I had looked. I've been looking for some stuff for Robert Denton. Because we had done a Civil War thing, and some things are popping up.
Yeah, that was a good series. I think Robert is a very scholarly individual.
Well, I mean, he's got a love for it. I mean, he gets into the reenactments not only for, I guess, the Civil War, but also the Revolutionary War.
Yeah, he's got a heck of an education, too. The man's got a lot of knowledge.
Well, and being in the geological field has led him to a lot of interesting stuff, and also...
And he knows a lot of people that are pretty interesting people.
And look, he lives out, I wouldn't say right in the mountains, but on the foothills of the Shenandoah out in Virginia, so he's in the hotbed. I mean, if you had to go to one state and one state only, if you had it for whatever Civil War stuff the state could avail itself of.
Yeah, it'd have to be Virginia. I mean,
absolutely.
There's so much history there.
I mean,
so many of the battles were fought there and so much, different intrigues that went on there.
During our honeymoon, one of the things we did is we had gone down to North Carolina by the coast. On the way down, on the way back, we went inland, and I wanted to stop at Spotsylvania, some of the other places, and boy, I mean, he could spend a week there, and we spent a couple of days, and we wound up going to Gettysburg during that first week of July when it happened, and my God, it was 95. I think it was as warm when they were having it out in Gettysburg.
I'm pretty sure it was.
And real quick, and I know I got into this about the Civil War, but one time when I went down to see one of my FBI buddies, I had some time to kill before they were going to take me on a flight, and Dennis, the agent, was going to take time off to just run me out to Dulles. So I said, well, look, meet me at Manassas. And I must have had 2 hours or more to walk that place alone. And I'm telling you, it was really a neat experience. I mean, the time just flew by, and I will confess to standing there sometimes and visualizing, say, some kind of cavalry run through the woods or something like that. You know what I mean? It was as romantic as you wanted to make it in that kind of historical sense. So, but I was just laughing because during the Civil War, in October of 1863, the Union spares a couple of, I guess, what they would call barks at that time, to go over and get into a fight with Japan, along with the Dutch, the French, and the British. And I'm like, how could the Union spare anything?
I'd never heard that.
Yeah, it's in the New York, what is it, Herald Tribune? Hold on a second. I got to get this right.
That was one of the old papers I know.
Yes, right. It was the, let me see here. Yeah, the New York Tribune. It wasn't the Herald Tribune at that time. October 2nd, 1863, front page story, the naval fight with the Japanese. And, of course, the Brits were on top of this whole thing. They were the instigators.
Always looking around.
I know.
Checking things out,
but I mean,
gathering intelligence.
Well, the Japanese warlords basically said, why don't you get out of here, Round Eye? I mean, they didn't want anybody here. Well, I mean, who are we to open up Japan for trade? Let Japan be open if Japan wants to be. I never understood that, and that was in the history books, and I was saying, why is it our business to do that to anybody if they don't want to trade?
Well, it's not, but I mean, the oligarchy that runs this country is going to do what it can do to make more money and gain more power. Doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. I mean, they do it all over the world.
And you can't blame the certain Japanese factions for saying, "Hey, enough is enough." And I think they realized that their emperor was compromised. And I'm not going to go through the whole thing right now.
Yeah.
But it's a front page story with a map of the battle. And in the old days, they would do what they call tombstone headlines, which was one column, and it would start off with "Important from Japan." Hostilities opened against foreigners. American, French, and Dutch vessels attacked. Now we're making them the bad guy, right?
Oh, yeah, well.
Where are you attacking them?
We're the victim.
What do you want? You're in Japanese waters, you jerks. Of course you're getting attacked. They don't want you there. Then it says 2 Japanese war vessels destroyed. Oh, man. Heavy casualties for the Japanese, 5 dead, 6 wounded Americans and all this. But, I'm looking at that and I'm like, you got a civil war going on. Don't you think that would just keep you busy enough?
Yeah, that's what I would have thought. I was really surprised.
And what's interesting, though, is that this is the time that Russia sent their Pacific and Atlantic fleets to the United States right during the Civil War. So another Russia, which was in their backyard on their eastern border, they split and go to San Francisco, and then we got ships leaving San Francisco going over and fighting the Japanese right near Vladivostok. Somebody explain this stuff to me.
I don't know. I know that there was a lot of intrigues at that time, of course, with the French and Spanish, and I forget the other European nations that were jacking around with Mexico. Of course,
right.
They set up Maximilian down in Mexico around that time. That was one of the things with Juarez is that he was an admirer of Lincoln. He wanted to have a republic, something along the lines of the United States in Mexico. And, he really resented, obviously, the intrusion of the European powers into Mexico.
Well, the reason why I've gotten into this again is exactly that. Robert and I go back and forth. I have to prove the case for the Jesuits and such. And that's okay. And I've been looking through this New York Tribune, and what's really interesting is, and this bears out some stuff that I did read on the Internet. I'm not saying that's because it was, it wasn't from a mainstream site. It certainly wasn't from MSNBC or anything. But it had said that, well, if we can believe the story that we get about the Jesuits, and that's this. Juarez did not like the Catholic Church and and its plundering in his country.
No, in fact, that was one of his main main contentions was that the Catholic Church was doing a great deal of damage to Mexico and keeping it subservient, keeping the people subservient, keeping them ignorant because it would not allow them to have public education in Mexico.
Now you've got, now knowing that, Pope Pius can't be too happy about that.
No, he wasn't happy at all.
So he prevailed upon an Austrian, which was in the Habsburg line and pro-Catholic. He sends Maximilian over with Carlotta, a lot of good she did, and French troops. I think I get this. Okay, so we got an Austrian head, an emperor, puppet though he may be, with French troops, and they failed to suppress Juarez. Now, the mainstream story says Carlotta came back and tried to drum up more support for Maximilian's effort and went to the Pope. All right, what's funny is in the mainstream story, in the newspapers, to read this is fascinating in the newspapers. Carlotta was called insane from the stress of what had been happening. She said she had her life attempted through poisoning. Does that sound familiar? And basically they made the Pope sound like he patted her on the head and said, honey, you've been out in the sun too long. What I believe happened was that her life was attempted. And because Maximilian failed, when Carlotta came back, Pope Pius threw her into a high tower. And she went nuts. And that was his way of punishing Maximilian for failing to do what he was supposed to do with the French troops. So what happens is Maximilian, of course, is executed. The troops leave. And the United States at that time told Juarez, if they don't boogie their butts out of here, we will come down and help you.
Yeah, there was a lot of fear in Washington that this was going to be an attempt not just to take Mexico, but to take the United States as well, with the help of the Confederacy. And that there probably was a lot of reason for them to believe that. There's probably a lot of evidence that was what was on the minds, not necessarily of Maximilian, but his handlers. And you know who that is.
Oh, yeah. And and the British were poised too, but didn't do anything.
Yep.
But in the end, I don't think that knowing what the master plan was that we're living in to this day, I never believed that they wanted to ribbon the United States into two separate countries. Not for if we were to be what we were to be in the 20th century, we could not be two separate entities.
No.
But the rejoining of the two countries under the 14th Amendment made it very clear you are now federalized up your ass and forget states' rights, and you'll be easier to deal with the monarchs from Europe.
Well, it's also the case that there was probably a lot of impetus to put the United States into a confederation with and be a nation with Mexico.
Well,
I mean, we've been through all that. The Rosicrucians talk about that a lot.
And what is happening?
That's part of the plan.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got the North American Union, which people laugh at, but it's real. I mean, if you go down I-35 here in Austin, which is part of the superhighway, which goes all the way from Mexico to Canada, and you see all the trucking that goes along there, it's all international.
All right, now let me ask you something, because Robert Burke, I tell you, he's a quiet man, but he did nice research, and he happened to be in a situation in his own business where certain things came by. And what I found interesting was when the NASCO corridor website went up, which was the vanilla, for public consumption, they were saying, oh, no, we're not building another new highway. We're just kind of augmenting I-35.
Yeah.
Well, he finds out through some trade journal that Grupo Ferrovial from Spain got the contract to build a new highway in Texas. So it's like, okay, hun, which are you a lion? Now, what I'm going to ask you, have you seen or do you know of any adjacent highways being built that you could not pass for expansion of the original I-35? Is there anything you see out there?
No, the only thing I know is that 35 is being expanded.
Okay.
I mean, it is, and there's a lot of highways being spurred off of it. In fact, there's a very large number of toll roads that are coming off of it, and I don't know what the end game is, what the plan is. They could put another highway in, but I would think probably make more sense just to expand 35.
Well, think about this.
I really don't know this.
I mean, we had this in Jersey, and it made sense. What I'm thinking is, if Kansas City is going to be a hub for distribution, and at a point where perhaps you get this flanking outward to both to the northeast and to the northwest. And that's another whole thing. That would hook up with 29, I think, or 25 that would be going north from Denver. If it were going to let's say, out of Kansas City, which was one of the ideas, because Kansas City also had a hub there for rail yards, wouldn't it make sense if you wanted an express 35, forget all these like on and off ramps, boom, gone, right?
Right.
That would make sense then.
Yeah, I would think they'd do that. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that that's part of the plan. I mean, it's coming together. I mean, they're working on. They have to. Well, they don't have to, I guess, but they try to be as deceptive with it as they can. But I mean, sooner or later, the three countries, I mean, United States, Canada, and Mexico, are going to be put into what I believe will be like a Eurozone.
Yeah, all the countries will be, and we talked about this, and I find it very plausible when the Club of Rome came out at the beginning of the 70s. And showed that map with 10 unions, which rings true with Scripture. From the 10 unions would be a final horn, the largest horn, right?
Right.
It comes out of the 10. So I think what we'll see is there'll be this amalgamation will be fast-tracked, I think, after the war. Because there ain't going to be much left.
Yeah.
And we'll see Denver as a political hub, perhaps for the whole union. And that's been foretold as well, and I think that'll happen. Beforehand, no. I think we'll get all this happening after the United States has gotten its ass fully kicked in WW3.
Oh yeah, I think things are just being set up now. There's preparation, being done, and once the events go the way that they want, the ones that they've set up, and everything is finalized, then they'll put the final pieces of the puzzle together, and you'll have the world set up the way that they want it for the beast system.
Let me ask you these. I'm going to give you multiple choice here. because through emailing now, and especially at this point in my tenure, what do you think is the most likely scenario if there was a choice between these two? Choice one, no economic catastrophe but a world war, or the second choice, an economic catastrophe but no world war. Which scenario do you think is more plausible?
I think you asked me that last week, and I think the former.
I thought I did.
You asked me last week, but the first one.
All right, well, you give me the same answer, and I'm happy. I was just testing you. You know why? I tell you, it's some of these things, when I write emails and stuff, and I go back, and I'm like, did I run that by Larry yet?
Yeah, it's a senior moment, Viz. Let's face it.
You know, it probably is, but don't, you know. And if that's the case, I'll forget this happened, so I'll feel good.
Yeah, it'll all be okay.
I still like to look at it as that I'm not losing brain cells. I've lived so long, I've remembered so much, I got to offload shit.
Yeah, well, you know, when people get older, you know, that short-term memory goes. The long-term memory is stored in a different place, you know, and you can harken back to the olden days when, you know, in your golden years. But you know what happened yesterday or the last 30 minutes may not be there available to the memory.
You know why it's good is then you realize you don't really need to eat very well as you get older because you can't remember what you ate anyway. Doesn't matter, you know. All right.
I think you just worry less and less as you get a lot older because you can't remember what happened anyhow.
Yeah, you know, I figure in another 10 years I'm going to look like Will Gear, okay? I swear, and I'm going to sit there in a porch and go, phase me.
Oh, man. Hey, I've already got the mustache, the gray, it's almost white now, mustache.
Yeah, when I saw him in Jeremiah Johnson, I think that's your snapshot of him, too. I'm like, yeah, that's the way I'm looking. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, what the heck?
I'll go cavort around the Cascades with Trudeau.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, what a scene that'll be. All right, what does this have to do with Nazism? Everything. No, we're talking about America and the way it's going to end up. And often, of course, the past is prologue, but the future, the past also tells you the future. And
exactly.
We're seeing ourselves getting very well and deeply massaged to turn into a rather, I would say, heartless fascist country, feeling, as Germany did, that it was right to be vindictive and to strike back at all those who don't like us, quote, you know. And I think we've reached a certain point along the way.
Well, we've been turning into the Fourth Reich for quite a while now.
Well, and doesn't it do your heart well?
We're almost to the point where, you know, the transition is complete.
Well, you know, the genesis for this whole thing, too, is, I mean, you had been doing this research for a long, long time. Ominous Parallels is what finally woke me up. And I was hard to shake that book in the sense of what was written back in 80 was turning out. I mean, I don't think that Peikoff is got the solutions because he's pretty much an objectivist and whatever that's supposed to mean. But anyway, he doesn't think religion get anything out of, you know, this. In fact, it might be a problem. And he might be right. Organized religion is a problem. But, of course, he has no
organized religion is, but
it is,
Christianity is, you know, true Christianity. The true belief in Jesus Christ is what you and I are into. And I'm sorry, but that's the truth. And the final solution is the second coming of Jesus Christ, setting things right, and you know, a new heaven and a new earth. And that's the only solution. Like you used to say a lot was, and I liked it, was the only way out is up. And you're quite right with that.
You know, I'm gonna run something by you that I know I didn't say last week. That stems from an email that Gino from Crooklyn had sent. He's got some. In fact, you won't have access to them until you go, you know, where you have to go Monday, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But I'm going to run something by you that sprang from that particular two emails he sent that were very sentient. But I had said in this one email, I'm going, look, and I know that right now we probably turned away. I don't know how many listeners about, it's the Jesus thing again. But here's my point. Well, I said to them, it's like, look, even if I didn't believe in the hereafter as portrayed in Scripture, I would still look and assess the present situation the same way. It's like, you think we can beat the NWO? Are you serious? In fact, No sooner did I hear some more.
It's an absurd idea. I mean, it really is.
It's not even a fair fight.
Yeah, it's just too far along.
No.
I mean, in the weaponry involved.
There you go.
I mean, I don't think these people realize just how hard it would be, even if the weaponry wasn't so much one-sided. Even if the weaponry wasn't one-sided, it would be extremely difficult to pull off a revolution. If you look at the history of the world, an awful lot of revolutions have been squashed. An awful lot of them have. You can look at the history of South America and Mexico and South America. Tons of revolutions, most of which were just flattened out within a very short period of time. And the people that were leading the charge were either killed, captured, and tortured, and then killed, And it's just these people, have been watching too many video games or something that, these BS patriots, with a lot of macho fantasies, running around thinking that they're gonna defeat the NWO with their AK-47 or their shotguns or whatever. It's just not going to happen, folks.
Oh, do you remember those Sons of Liberty that I ran that audio from?
Yeah.
What a bunch of hormones.
It's ridiculous, man. Those guys, I don't know. And most of these people don't really have any extensive military training. You're going to be going up against people. If you did it, you would be going up against people who are professionals. Hard young dudes who know what they're doing and are experts in weaponry. These people learned how to kill a long time ago, and you're not going to make a dent into that.
No, and I don't think our own will do it to us, and that's why the scenario that was portrayed in that book, The Meneses Chronicles, that was also generated by the Rosicrucians out of Quakerstown, Pennsylvania, is very real. Plus, they say the quote is specious from Kissinger. All right, fine. I mean, that's Wikipedia. It doesn't like anything. You can't trust them. But the crack that supposedly was attributed to Kissinger about, in back of the Rodney King riots, that supposedly he said that Americans, would be incensed if foreign troops came into their country, but there'll be a day when they beg for it. I have no problem with the authenticity, if not it was from Henry, but the authenticity and correctness of the quote. Combined with the Meneses Chronicles, which I find very plausible scenario, and you'll get done to you, yes, what your own won't. And that means there'll have to be, for whatever the reasons are, foreign troops here who don't really give a snot. In fact, have actually been waiting for this. So whether
America has created so much ill will over the course of the last 65, 67 years since World War II. I mean, for a fact, America has gone around, I say America, the American government, and especially the CIA, has gone around and done some just terrible things all over the world. I mean, assassinations, just tons of situations where they have gone in and installed right-wing governments that go out and murder and torture and rape, and the list is a long one. I mean, I don't have time to even really get into that much, but I mean, America has created so much ill will, and most Americans are so ignorant of it that it's really scary. I mean, we think the world loves it. The world hates our guts. I'm sorry, America, which used to be a beacon of freedom, or at least, an illusion of that, is now considered to be the world's bully. And Americans, the majority of Americans don't get it. They don't understand the world hates our guts.
I keep thinking of the way we liberated Iraq's people.
Oh, yeah.
Like smoldering ruins and saying, hey, how do you like your country now?
Yeah. I know your leg's blown off. I know your father's been killed, and but isn't it great? This is America. We've done you some real service here. We've helped you out. Now,
I never realized this until a listener, Bart, had sent me this. We did a book swap, and he sent me this Mark Twain's Weapons of Satire, anti-imperialist writings on the Philippine-American War. That refers to is that after we helped the Filipinos get rid of the Spaniards, we started warring on the Filipinos. But Twain writes as if he were one of us, not like a lefty, like whatever. Who's that schmuck that runs that show on ABC? I can't remember. I forget. He's a comedian, so to speak. But, you know.
Oh, yeah, Bill Maher.
Bill Maher. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Get lost with them and Oberman and stuff. Like, screw you. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, like, he'd be one of us saying the same thing. Like, who are you kidding? You calling this freedom, you know? And he was shunned by many, and he did this at the end of his life. So for the last, 10 years of his life, it doesn't seem like he was too popular with the majority, because why? Of course, the majority is never right, and they were all for this jingoistic war. But what he wrote, I'm telling you, Bart, thank you very much for sending that to me, because it was stunning.
Well, the thing is, you never hear that stuff about
never.
Twain.
Nope.
You know, you get to, you know, they talk to you a lot about, you know, Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer and all that, and those are great books and all that, but you really don't get into Twain's political views, which he was a very caustic critic of the American administrations that he lived under.
He reminds me of Mencken and Albert Nock,
right,
and Spooner, and all those names. Every single one of them is probably not on the tip of more than maybe 10,000 Americans.
Yeah. He's an American legend. I mean, a literary legend in this country and across the world, for that matter. But they don't really talk to you a lot about. It's not that it's totally suppressed, but you really don't hear about it. And when you start looking at his work, and you know, some of the criticisms that he made, you know, are pretty amazing.
You know, when I was getting ready for this, coming into the office, I have the radio on to keep the birds happy. And that song was on, and I know it's like, you know, really great, and I wish I could believe it. I'm sure the author, the composer and the singer do, but you know, there's that line. It goes, but I'm glad I live in America where at least I know I'm free. And I'm like, no, not really. So you know, great, but
at least you've been told you're free.
Yeah, and I tell you what, you know, it's true. The more they tell you, that means the less you have. And nobody's making the comparison, it seems, between what people pop off about, especially during presidential campaigns, when this madness takes a whole new turn every 4 years, and the reality of your life in the aftermath. Nothing changes. If anything, it gets worse. So what is the problem, folks? Can't you align, or at least realize there's a difference between all the blah, blah, blah and the kazinga and the reality that takes place, which means we're getting screwed another 4 years, no matter who's in office. It's crazy. I mean,
I'm so glad they gave me my freedom.
Yeah. Don't pay your income tax for a couple of years.
My freedom to go vote for Tweedledee or Tweedledum.
All right. I know. Oh, jeez, I tell you. Okay. Now we are going to turn the clock back. Not too many decades. Things were the same back then as they are now.
Yeah.
And we had left off somewhere. Actually, you never left the assassination issue, and we're going to go back and revisit it today, I believe.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to talk about the assassinations of Martin Luther King and also of George Wallace. And obviously, those two guys were on opposite ends of the spectrum, but they were both victims of the same people. Let's get into assassination as a tool of fascism by John Judge, and it kind of sets up what I'm saying today, and I'll go into more specifics on Martin Luther King. And the financing, if you remember, of Oliver North's operation was through Credit Suisse. Well, Credit Suisse was set up as a bank in the 1940s as the funnel and conduit for Permindex. It was the banking firm to take care of Permindex international operations. And as an aside, if you remember, we've talked about Permindex as being a dummy corporation that was set up to recruit and finance assassinations, or assassins and assassinations. And then again, back to Judge. And just recently when I was reading Tennessee Waltz by James Earl Ray, where he names the person in Canada that introduced him to the mysterious character Raoul, who set him up as the patsy, he says that that's a person named David Gravier. Well, David Gravier is an international financier connected to American Banking and Trust, which itself is a major subsidiary of, guess who? Credit Suisse. Where did Ray meet him? Raoul. He met him in Canada, where Permindex was located. See, so you'll find the connections going back to certain firms and certain cover. Now, remember, this is written in the late 80s, so He goes on to say, the current world cover for the training of these assassins, I believe, is an evangelical right-wing organization known as World Vision. Among its employees at the Fort Chaffee refugee camp it was running for Laotian, Thai, and Vietnamese refugees was a young man named Mark David Chapman, responsible for the death of a very political musician who could have brought out 1 million people out in response to Reagan's war efforts in a single day, named John Lennon. Mark David Chapman had military training. He was in Beirut, interesting enough, when military training was going on there by Wilson and Turple. And he moved to Hawaii, worked for the large military firms. You remember he took a military stance at the time. The chairman of the board in those days of World Vision was none other than John Hinckley Sr. The funding for World Vision was primarily during the Vietnam period. CIA was directly funding it. They now still emit 5% coming from U.S. aid, which was the cover. And they operated in all of Southeast Asia, collecting information on Laotians, Cambodians, and others under the cover of this missionary work. They were in charge of the refugee camps at Sabra and Shatila when the fascist phalange came in and killed the Palestinians. I found the same names cropping up, the same modus operandi, the same monies, and I've only named a few of them, throughout not only the major assassinations with the Kennedys and Martin Luther King, but also many of the witnesses that died, 75 strange witness deaths in the John Kennedy case, 80 each or around that in both Martin Luther King and the Robert Kennedy case, another 35 to 40 strange deaths connected with Watergate and the Second House Select Committee on Assassinations. And a lot of the people that we knew were involved in the original research started to drop dead. There's people dropping dead now during the Contractor investigation. It's a constant pattern. The witnesses are wiped out. And when you go into the specifics, who did they know or where they were, who was around them or who helped set them up, I think you will find people that have connections to Navy intelligence. That's the central place where these people operated from on the command level. You'll find people otherwise involved in the U.S. intelligence agencies. And you'll find people either with direct ties to Nazi Germany or with connections to the current fascist international networks that grew out of that period. But those Nazis came here, and they formed our foreign policy. Next, I'm going to go on to an article that was written back in 2004 in the Village Voice by Richard Goldstein. It's called Target Martin Luther King, a new look at America's most unresolved assassination.
What year is that?
2004.
Okay.
Okay. In it, Goldstein starts talking about a book that's written by William Pepper, who was a lawyer that was involved in the Martin Luther King case. He's been involved in several very high-level cases. He tried to defend James Earl Ray, and he is currently defending Sirhan Sirhan. So you see that he's been involved in trying to bring the truth out about assassinations. Got a lot of respect for the guy. I've heard him interviewed before. We never talked about assassination, says William Pepper, who worked with King during the last year of his life. Though black activists were being murdered in growing numbers, King's colleagues didn't connect the dots. Quote, we never put together what had happened in Vietnam, Cuba, and the Congo, where CIA-supported assassination plots succeeded. We couldn't apply that to us. It's a lament of mine that we were not more aware. And then Goldstein says, by 1978, Pepper was in a very different place. He'd become an attorney representing the man convicted of killing King, James Earl Ray. Ray always claimed he'd been framed, and the King family came to believe him. With their approval, Pepper fought for a retrial, but the state of Tennessee successfully blocked the proceedings, and in 1998, Ray died, still protesting his innocence. A year later, Pepper was back in court, pursuing the only option that was left, a civil suit. The jury concurred with his case, and their verdict cited government agencies as parties to this conspiracy. The Justice Department launched an investigation in 2000, but found no basis for the jury's judgment. The official explanation remains what it was that raised conviction, that he acted alone. Now Pepper has written a book about the case that dominated his life for more than 20 years. An act of state, the execution of Martin Luther King, is being published next week. The facts, as Pepper presents them, are these. King was the victim of a contract taken out by mobsters already doing business with the government, e.g. laundering money for the CIA. Ray was their patsy, framed by the Memphis police, who also tampered with the crime scene and manipulated evidence. military units under the auspices of the Special Forces surrounded the motel where King was staying, serving as a backup unit in case the hitman failed. The FBI, which had planted stories deriding King for staying in white hotels, drew him back to the black-owned Lorraine, and his secluded room was changed to one with a very visible balcony. Armed black activists who had stationed themselves in a rooming house overlooking the hotel were told to leave just before the killing, as were black officers and firefighters. If you were active in the 1960s or plan to be today, it will horrify you to hear Pepper's account of the military's plans for dealing with domestic disturbances. The sharpshooters who travel around the country with mug books of alleged subversives, the maniacal surveillance machine that churned out data on millions of Americans, the links between right-wing racist J. Edgar Hoover, who was known to be obsessed with King, and top military commanders. Pepper thinks the spark that set all these forces off was King's decision to organize a massive Poor People's March on Washington. Like the Veterans Army in the 30s that descended on the Capitol during the Depression, they would camp there and visit their representatives every day. Remembering what had happened to those vets, they were fired on by federal troops. The government feared that King's March would become a bloodbath. The view of official intelligence, Pepper says, was that King would lose control of an increasingly angry mob to radicals in the wings, and, quote, and very likely that mob would become a revolutionary force. The prospect of troops firing on marchers and riots spreading to other cities was terrifying, especially since the Army was already bogged down in war. A decision was made to cut the movement down from its head. Then I could go into some of the evidence of the MLK assassination.
All right, I got a quick general questions for you.
Sure.
Okay, now, am I to believe that Permidex supported the training of assassins to hit particular targets that happen to be JFK, RFK, MLK?
I think so. I think that they were, you can't really connect it, that far back, but you know that there's a general connection there, yeah.
All right, now, did Permidex also support the training of assassins to hit targets outside the United States?
I would think so, yeah.
All right, now.
I haven't really gone into any research on that, but, the CIA does that on a regular basis, and we know that they use Permidex.
Okay. They talk about 63 being a coup d'etat.
Mm-hmm. All
right, if that is the case, and I don't know, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, I'm not sure I'm okay with that statement, but if it is so, the assassinations then start at 63. And where do they end? Do they end with Wallace in 76? Obviously.
72.
Wallace was 72, that's right. I was there in 76, sorry.
Yeah.
No, like I told you, I used to go to the giant supermarket there.
Yeah.
In that very plaza where he got popped. All right, 72. 72, and then we have Ford in 75, but I don't think that's got anything to do with this nexus of assassinations from like 63, 9 years later, 72. Could we group those together as being the produce of an assassination program, and that what happened with Ford, actually what I think that was sloppy planning by the Rockefellers? Well,
I think the assassinations program continued on into, I guess John Lennon was assassinated. We talked about in that article, the first article I read. I think they continued on into at least into 1980, and I think they still continue on. I think I'm trying to think of the lady's name, Gifford, I think it was, the representative out in Arizona.
Oh, Arizona. Okay. Yeah, Gifford, right.
I think that's probably part of an assassination program because it's got the classic setup. You've got the patsy who has all these earmarks of being a total Looney Tune, and then of course there's always a second shooter. And you hear about it at first that somebody has been arrested or being questioned, and then all of a sudden it all goes away. And I think it continues to our day. They don't always use, a shooter. Sometimes they set people up like I think they set up Paul Wellstone, who was the representative, I believe, from Minnesota.
That's right.
I believe he was set up on a plane crash. And people just disappear, who are a problem.
Well,
or certain elements.
I think this statement is true that Democrats disproportionately have more mishaps.
Oh yeah,
in the air.
Oh yeah.
And who was the one that was they felt was also targeted? Help me out here. Somebody from Missouri. Was he a senator?
Wellstone was the guy I was thinking about.
Yeah, Wellstone's Minnesota.
Yeah.
But do you not remember?
Yeah, I kind of remember the guy you're talking about. I can't. The name escapes me right now.
And I think his wife filled his seat.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can't remember this was Illinois or Missouri, but the event might have happened over Missouri.
Sometimes also they don't even kill the person; they smear them. If you get in the way, they smear you. Ross Perot, I think, got in the way, and they went on a campaign to make him look like a Looney Tune, concerning the marriage of his daughter, and you remember all that strange incident.
Yeah, but what's even stranger is the fact that they had him come out, and then he dropped out and came back again.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, he stepped into the whole thing, looked like your basic spoiler as a third-party candidate. Mm-hmm. Then he dropped out, and they brought him back in again.
Yeah.
And while I still believe politics was real, I was going to vote for Perot until he dropped out. When he came back in, it's like I'm not interested.
Yeah.
And the old story is that I don't know if he was a threat that much to both. See, here's what I'm thinking about with third parties, and I'm not going to go that far afield. We'll get back. Mm-hmm. But I was thinking about the other day when Teddy Roosevelt gets shot by a supposed anarchist who's a New York City saloon keeper. All right. Mm-hmm. It's like Teddy absolutely kicked Taft's ass in the presidential election. He lost to Wilson, but Wilson was supposed to be the guy, and I wonder if Teddy was shot because it's like Teddy might win the whole damn thing, and we don't want him to.
Exactly.
I look at Perot. Perot might win the whole damn thing, get him out of here.
Yeah.
And then they brought him back because, so the story goes, Bush was going up in the polls, and he looked like he was going to be a threat to the intended victor, Clinton, as Wilson was back in, 13 or so.
Right.
1913.
Well, I mean, really, in 92, when Clinton won, the entrance into the race by Perot helped Clinton quite a bit.
That was the idea.
Yeah, and that was it.
Teddy was supposed to draw from Taft, which he did, but I think he might have been starting to look like he would draw from Wilson. Remember, this is back then when there weren't the measurement tools that we have now, or at least the propaganda tools like, this is a CBS so-and-so poll, I always laugh because I've never, you've never, and we don't know anybody that's ever been polled in these polls. Well, the Pew
I
poll.
don't know anybody.
No.
I've never met anybody.
I mean, where's that godforsaken college in Connecticut? The Quinnipiac poll. Who gives a crap about Quinnipiac? It's a very nice school, though. It's got a good soccer program.
I have no idea.
But I mean, I don't give a crap.
It sounds kind of whacked out.
Who are these polls and think tanks? Where do they come from?
Uh-huh.
All right, so what I'm saying is that Teddy, too popular, try to kill him. Oh, that didn't work. But Teddy, I mean, obviously some of the starch was taken out of him and ruin your day, when your speech stops you from being killed.
It's all kind of blurred, but, people are taken out of the way who are a problem. And it's not about ballots, it's about bullets. And if you're a problem for the government, if you're a problem for certain elements, you're not going to be there very long.
But then I wonder about Gifford. Like, what was the benefit? Who benefited by her shooting? Or what? Now, I hate to say this, but the bastards, you can't put them above this. I mean, did they run some of these as a trial, as an exercise? Oh, look, we got to do that. And she's got to walk around never the same again. But was she a threat to somebody? I mean, I don't know. If she weren't a political threat, then why do that?
I think she was very popular, and she's very liberal. And I think somebody was probably afraid that she would seek higher office. And I think she had kind of put a kink in the plans of the Tea Party in that area, and was stealing their thunder away from them. And as a result, She got shot in the head.
You know,
I mean, I really don't know,
but
that's what it looked like to me, was that anytime they see anybody that might be a threat, who is a potential threat, somebody who is charismatic and the public, you know, is buying into their charisma, if they're on the left, they're not going to be there very long. Or
one of the nicer ways of getting eliminated is like John Edwards. They let you dick do your talking, you know. The same with Gary Hart.
Yeah.
What a jerk.
Yeah, yeah.
I have new ideas. Well, we'd like to hear some. And go ahead and check my garbage. See if I'm messing around with anybody. Well, Gary, you are.
Yeah.
And he's still in the CFR, which, okay, I don't understand. But anyway, yeah, you're right. But, I'm gasping because I really don't care for anybody who's in Congress or Senate. But I have to, when I look at that woman, I'm like, did this have to happen? I mean, come on.
Well, the thing that is interesting to me about Gifford's case was that it was just, like I said, a classic, setup for the assassination. You always have the patsy. He's always a Looney Tune. They go to his house. There's always all this incriminating evidence that makes him look completely whacked out. In this case, the guy had some kind of voodoo shrine out behind his house, and all kinds of weird literature,
But here's what I want to know, Larry. What I find even more just austere about this, or stark, I should say. Did you ever see an individual turn from like a hippie, like grunge skateboarder to Uncle Fester? I mean, is that amazing or what? I got Wes. Put a light bulb in his mouth. I mean, is that a creepy metamorphosis?
It really was.
Oh.
I think the guy genuinely was whacked to the max, but he made a good patsy as a result.
Especially after the lobotomy.
Yeah, and and then they talked about a second shooter. Somebody had been interrogated, had been stopped and interrogated, and they spoke about it in the news the first couple of days, and then boom, there was nothing more about it.
You talking about the Charlie Manson?
The guy who really did the shooting, who really pulled it off and got away,
Are you talking about the Charlie Manson-looking guy?
The second shooter.
I'm sorry, I stepped on you. I just got to know. Are you talking about that Charlie Manson-looking guy who was considered a person of interest and then disappeared?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one and the Norwegian shooting.
Mm-hmm.
What happened to Bermuda Onion Head?
Yeah.
You remember that guy?
Yeah.
There's 2 times now when, you see, that's why you can't muzzle original news stories, because the handlers can't do the damage control right away.
Mm-hmm.
So that guy in Norway with the Bermuda Head and Charlie Manson lookalike over in Arizona, they were immediately reported as second shooters. And so what happened? That same thing happened at the Omaha Mall Christmas shooting of a couple of years ago. They
just fade away and you never hear about them again.
But what's so funny is that here's a case where here we got some auxiliary people involved, which you didn't hear about other times, and that later came out. But here you got them. They're like, oh, no, make them go away.
Yeah.
We got to live with the lone gunman.
They disappear, and the media never talks about them again.
No. The lone gunman. We got to have the lone gunman.
It's always the lone gunman. It doesn't matter. The lone gunman, in the case of Wallace, the lone gunman, Bremer, had 5 rounds in his pistol. It only held 5 rounds. My God, I don't remember how many shots. I'll talk about it later, but there's something like 11, 12 shots were taken.
Yeah,
and nobody asked, well, could there be a second shooter? Because there has to be more than one shooter.
If we are to believe mainstream news, why wouldn't you hire a lone gunman nut? Because they got great success. I mean, their success percentage is like 98%.
Exactly.
Come on. What a bunch of jerks to believe this kind of crap. All right.
I was going to go on to the evidence. There's kind of a compilation of, brief compilation of the evidence in the Martin Luther King case. A civil trial by the King family in 1999 found the defendants Lloyd Jowers and other unknown co-conspirators guilty in the wrongful death of Martin Luther King Jr. In the trial, these unknown co-conspirators were specifically named as the United States government, the state of Tennessee, the city of Memphis, and Memphis Police Department, James Earl Ray, Earl Clark, and Frank Liberto, who's a mafia kingpin. Earl Clark was a top marksman in the Memphis PD. J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI, Richard Helms and the CIA, and the military were also named. This historical trial was effectively blacked out of the U.S. media as the implications were simply too devastating to the establishment. That's really true. That thing was blacked out.
Yep.
I mean, did you hear about it? I mean, I didn't hear about it at the time. The media didn't say anything about it. I wasn't really aware until sometime later that they had this trial. And just kind of, it was a civil trial that just was very important as far as I'm concerned, but totally blacked out. I mean, you just see NBC, CBS, any of those people there. Ray consistently claimed he had a handler named Raul, with whom he was involved in a gun-running operation. Despite detailed documentation of this individual's presence and existence, witness accounts, photographs, records, etc., the government maintains that Raul never existed. At Ray's evidentiary hearing, a former FBI ballistics expert testified that not even the most skilled marksman could have accurately fired a rifle in the manner claimed by the government prosecution. The FBI leaked information to the local press that King was staying at the white-owned Holiday Inn, causing him to switch his accommodations to the less secure Motel Lorraine, where he was killed. An unknown man pretending to be with King's party came to the motel the day before King arrived and specifically requested a balcony room on the second floor. The bullet recovered from King's body has never been adequately tested and has not been proven to match Ray's alleged murder weapon. Shortly before the killing, King's police security detail was reduced from 8 officers to 2 officers in spite of more than 50 death threats against the civil rights leader. Just hours before the shooting, a black officer named Edward Reddick was sent home because of a mysterious threat against his life. This left a single policeman on the immediate scene. All of that, starts to lead me to think that something wasn't quite right.
Let me ask you this, because not a long time ago, within the last 2 years or something, Adam Gorightly and I did something about Kerry Thornley. Mm-hmm. He sent me something really interesting. It was a manuscript that Thornley wrote, but in the back of it had these references to a periodical that had to do with computers, and then it morphed into a political thing, from which springs that book I told you that was online, The Taking of America 1, 2, 3 by Richard Sprague.
Yeah.
He was in this. These guys were getting hip. You can read in their periodical where they were starting to feel their way through a dark room and realizing, yes, in fact, there is an elephant here. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I found, I don't know if you did, tell me. Here we go again. I mean, this is as stupid as like Lee Harvey Oswald with his chicken dinner on the 5th floor of the depository.
Yeah.
Supposedly, James Earl Ray's stuff was like out on the curb.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was supposed to, according to the government story, drop the bag after he committed the assassination.
All right, so I assassinate somebody, and all the incriminating information.
Oh yeah, sure.
Is in my brown bag.
Yeah, it's just like Lee Harvey Oswald orders a Mannlicher Carcano rifle from a mail order house in Chicago and has it delivered to his post office box.
Would stick out of the box.
What kind of a moron would do that? Lee Harvey Oswald had an IQ probably 125, 130 IQ because he learned Russian very well, which is a very difficult language. He's not stupid. There's no way he would have done that. But it sure is a good way to nail somebody with some phony evidence.
All right, I never really thought about this, so thank you. In other words, I don't know where the whole Mensa thing begins with genius and stuff, but he had a high IQ.
Yeah, he did. He did. I mean, from everything people have told me, I've asked people about it that I knew that were pretty good in language and about the Russian language, and they said not only is it difficult, but you've got to learn, if you want to write it, you have to learn the Cyrillic alphabet. And it's like I hadn't thought about that, but it's not an easy language to learn for a person from the Western world. And I mean, the fact that Oswald was picked to learn it, tells you right there he was in intelligence.
But does this also?
My point is that nobody who was planning to commit a murder would want to have that kind of a paper trail to the weapon that he's using, and it's obvious that it was a setup.
But doesn't this also belie the fact that even if Oswald was as stupid as you and me,
mm-hmm.
I should say I. I'm
Speak
sorry.
for yourself, Biff.
Yeah, I know. That should be in the subjective. I as I am. What it does, but don't we know that he had help? I mean, so he was in a program no matter what. I mean, they didn't have Rosetta back then, you know.
Yeah.
So I mean, if this guy was going to get proficient in, like you said, what do they call the Cyrillian alphabet?
Cyrillian alphabet, yeah. I mean, to write it, I mean, the Cyrillian alphabet, if I remember correctly, is very similar, you know, to writing in Greek. I forget.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I have to show my ignorance here about forgetting how it all works out, but it's very difficult. I mean, the characters are totally different, you know, from you know, language groups in Western Europe.
No, without a doubt. So either way we have this guy wasn't a dummy.
No, he wasn't stupid at all.
And even if he were, in a sense, to a certain point, then he had to have coaching. So no matter what, he was an asset. Mm-hmm. No matter what. So the whole thing also with that James Earl Ray thing about leaving incriminating evidence out on the curb. Oh, aren't you just great? Also,
you know what? There was a guy who owned a store on that same street not too far from where the bag was dropped, who said that bag had been there for 10 minutes before the assassination took place. This was an eyewitness. I ran across that testimony. I wish I had it right now. But he said that and of course it's just, you know, one person's word, but he said the bag was there for 10 minutes before the shots.
Is this also involved in this story? Is this the famous white car, a Mustang?
Yeah.
Yep, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the King family was being very frank and honest about saying, I mean, what are they going to do? They can't run up against the government, but they were cool enough to say either this guy didn't do it alone or he didn't do it at all.
Right. Well, what the King family's approach was when they realized that the government, you know, was going to stuff them at every turn, when they first realized that James Earl Ray was made a scapegoat, that he was a patsy, they talked to him extensively. I think Martin Luther King's older son spent a lot of time talking to Ray, and he was convinced that Ray was telling the truth, that he had been set up, that he didn't kill their father. And they knew the only thing they could do, since they couldn't get, Ray could never get another trial, you know, the government did everything it could to stuff him on that. And when he died, obviously, there's nothing they could do. So they decided that a civil trial would be the best thing. The idea was a civil trial. They could get the publicity, and they could get their case out there, and hopefully, you know, the real culprits at some point could be brought to justice. But it didn't work out that way.
Do we think that Jones also got the Jack Ruby cancer injection?
You know,
who knows, right?
Who knows? Yeah.
Would it be out of character? Absolutely not.
No. I mean, they could have done it. I mean, it's quite likely that they thought about it, even if they didn't do it. I'm not sure. I don't remember what Ray died of. If it was cancer, then, you know, possibility.
Yeah, I thought it was. I could look it up while we talk, but I think it was something that was a debilitating disease, which is.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. The whole Jack Ruby thing.
Oh, jeez.
Talk about strange. You know, if that didn't make you have some questions about what happened, I don't know. Okay. I'm going on to an article here called The Martin Luther King Conspiracy Exposed in Memphis. It's by Jim Douglas, who wrote for Probe magazine, still around. At any rate, he covered the trial. In fact, what's really strange is that only two reporters, one for Probe magazine, which is a very small magazine that writes a lot about political assassinations, and there was one other correspondent American correspondent for a European newspaper. Anyway, I'll talk about that. He said, I can hardly believe the fact that apart from the courtroom participants, only Memphis TV reporter Wendell Stacy and I attended from beginning to end this historic 3.5 week trial. Because of journalistic neglect, scarcely anyone else in this land of ours even knows what went on in it. After critical testimony was given in the trial's second week, before an almost empty chamber or gallery, Barbara Rice, U.S. correspondent for the Lisbon Daily Publico, who was there several days, turned to me and said, everything in the U.S. is the trial of the century. O.J.'s trial was the trial of the century. Clinton's trial was the trial of the century. But this is the trial of the century, and who's here? What I experienced in that courtroom ranged from inspiration at the courage of the Kings and their lawyer investigator William F. Pepper and the witnesses to the amazement at the government's carefully interwoven plot to kill King. The seriousness with which U.S. intelligence agencies planned the murder of Martin Luther King Jr. speaks eloquently of the threat Kingian nonviolence represented to the powers that be in the spring of 1968. In the complaint filed by the King family, King versus Jowers and other unknown co-conspirators, the only named defendant, Lloyd Jowers, was never their primary concern. As soon became evident in court, the real defendants were the anonymous co-conspirators who stood in the shadows behind Jowers, the former owner of a Memphis bar and grill. The Kings and Pepper were in effect charging U.S. intelligence agencies, particularly the FBI and Army intelligence, with organizing, subcontracting, and covering up the assassination. Such a charge guarantees almost insuperable obstacles to it being argued in a court within the United States. Judicially, it is an unwelcome beast. We can also thank the unlikely figure of Lloyd Jowers for providing a way into that truth. Lloyd Jowers, when the frail 73-year-old Jowers became ill after 3 days in court, Judge Swearingen excused him. Jowers did not testify and said through his attorney, Lewis Garrison, that he would plead the Fifth Amendment if subpoenaed. His discretion was too late. In 1993, against the advice of Garrison, Jowers had gone public. Prompted by William Pepper's progress as James Earl Ray's attorney in uncovering Jowers' role in the assassination, Jowers told his story to Sam Donaldson on Primetime Live. He said he had been asked to help in the murder of King and was told there would be a decoy, Ray, in the plot. He was also told that the police wouldn't be there that night. In that interview, the transcript of which was read to the jury in the Memphis courtroom, Jowers said the man who asked him to help in the murder was mafia-connected produce dealer named Frank Liberto. Liberto, now deceased, had a courier deliver $100,000 for Jowers to hold at his restaurant, Jim's Grill, the back door of which opened onto the dense bushes across from the Lorraine Motel. Jowers said he was visited the day before the murder by a man named Raul, who brought a rifle in a box. As cafe owner Lavada Addison, a friend of Liberto's in the late 70s, testified that Liberto had told her he had Martin Luther King killed. Addison's son, Nathan Whitlock, said when he learned of this conversation, he asked Liberto point blank if he had killed King. Liberto said, "I didn't kill the nigger, but I had it done." I said, "What about that other son of a bitch taking credit for it?" He says, he was nothing but a troublemaker from Missouri. He was a front man, a setup man. The jury also heard a tape recording of a 2-hour-long confession Jowers made at a fall 1998 meeting with Martin Luther King's son Dexter and former UN ambassador Andrew Young. On the tape, Jowers says that meetings to plan the assassination occurred at Jim's Grill. He said the planners included undercover Memphis Police Department officer Merrill McCullough, who now works for the Central Intelligence Agency and who is referenced in the trial transcript as Merrill McCullough. MPD Lieutenant Earl Clark, who died in 1987, a third police officer, and 2 men Jowers did not know but thought were federal agents. Young, who witnessed the assassination, can be heard on the tape identifying McCullough as the man kneeling beside King's body on the balcony in a famous photograph. According to witness Colby Vernon Smith, McCullough had infiltrated a Memphis community organizing group, the Invaders, which was working with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. In his trial testimony, Young said the MPD intelligence agent was the guy who ran up the balcony stairs with us to see Martin. Jowers says on the tape that right after the shot was fired, he received a smoking rifle at the rear door of Jim's Grill from Clark. He broke the rifle down into 2 pieces and wrapped it in a tablecloth. Raul picked it up the next day. Jowers said he didn't actually see who fired the shot that killed King, but thought it was Clark, the MPD's best marksman. Young testified that his impression from the 1998 meeting was that the ailing Jowers, quote, wanted to get right with God before he died, wanted to confess it and be free of it. Jowers denied, however, that he knew the plot's purpose was to kill King, a claim that seems implausible to Dexter, King, and Young. Jowers had continued to fear jail, and he had directed Garrison to defend him on the grounds that he didn't know the target of the plot was King. But his interview with Donaldson suggests he was not naive on this point. Lloyd Jowers' story opened the door to testimony that explored the systemic nature of the murder in 7 other basic areas. I won't go into it, but its background to the assassination local conspiracy, the crime scene, Raoul in a broader conspiracy and cover-up. But I think that points out that, it was a pretty elaborate conspiracy and government agencies involved as well as the mafia. And having gone through that about Martin Luther King, unless you have any other questions or comments, I was going to go on to George Wallace.
No, go ahead, thank you.
Sure. Okay, this is from Probe magazine, written by Lisa Pease, who I think is a very good writer on this sort of information. I saw an interview with her and Oliver Stone, and a really intelligent lady and well-spoken. Here's a quote from Wallace in the article is Arthur Bremer and George Wallace, Deja Vu all over again. Wallace said, I quote, "I have no evidence, but I think my attempted assassination was part of a conspiracy." Pease says, "The story was both familiar and devastating. Another crazy gunman portrayed as a withdrawn loner had taken down another leading political figure in our country. On May 15, 1972, Arthur Herman Bremer pulled a gun and fired upon George Corley Wallace during his campaign rally at a shopping center in Laurel, Maryland. Wallace alone was wounded in 9 different places. 3 other people were wounded by a bullet apiece. That makes 12 wounds. The gun found at the scene and presumed to be the only weapon used could only hold 5 bullets. Looks like someone brought magic bullets to Laurel that day. Doctors who treated Wallace said he was hit by a minimum of 4 bullets and possibly 5. Yet 3 other victims were hit by bullets, and bullets were recovered from 2 of them. The New York Times reported that there was a broad speculation on how 4 persons had suffered at least 7 separate wounds from a maximum of 5 shots, adding that although various law enforcement agencies had personnel on the scene, these agencies claimed that none of the officers or agents had discharged their weapons. Curiously absent is the logical deduction perhaps a second shooter was present. The Maryland police originally issued a bulletin regarding a second suspect in the shooting. An all-points bulletin described the man as a white male, 6'3", 220 pounds, with silver gray hair, driving a 1971 light blue Cadillac. The bulletin was retracted soon after, however, and the police disavowed later that the bulletin had anything to do with the assassination attempt. Carl Bernstein, along with Bob Woodward, wrote several of the pieces related to Wallace shooting, authored an article claiming to refute this and other rumors surrounding the case. According to Bernstein, a man had been seen changing his auto license plates from Georgia to Maryland tags. The car, a light blue Cadillac, was later found abandoned. The police reported that the incident was unconnected with the shooting. There had been an earlier incident that bears noting. According to Dothard, 2 men with guns appeared at a Wallace rally 9 days before the attempted assassination. One man apprehended was without explanation released. The other man escaped. Curiously, there's no record of the man's arrest or of anything about his companion. Bremer spent at least 2 months traveling between Milwaukee, Canada, New York, and Maryland before the Laurel incident. Yet Bremer never had any significant source of income. His last 2 jobs before he disappeared from Milwaukee mid-February of 1972 were as a busboy and a janitor. And as the New York Times put it, how did the former busboy and janitor, who earned $3,016 last year, according to a federal income tax form found in his apartment, support himself and manage to buy guns, tape recorders, portable radio police van, binoculars, and other equipment he was carrying, as well as finance his travels? Curiously, the New York Times appeared to have inflated the income figure. Both the Washington Post and Time magazine had previously reported that the federal income tax form found in the apartment showed a much lower figure of $1,611. The lower figure is likely the accurate one, given that Bremer made only $9.45 a day, and even then, he would have had to put in for overtime to reach that figure. Bremer could not have had that full sum available, as he had to pay rent and eat during that year. Assuming he spent money on little else, there is still an enormous problem here. Bremer was able to purchase a car for $795 in cash, fly to and from New York City, stay at the exclusive Waldorf Astoria Hotel, drive to and from Ottawa, Canada, where he stayed at another exclusive hotel, the Lord Elgin, where the Secret Service were staying during Nixon's visit, buy 3 guns, all of which cost upward of $80, take a helicopter ride in New York City, obtain a ride in a chauffeured limousine, tip a girl in a massage parlor $30, and so forth. And with the cases of Lee Harvey Oswald and James Earl Way, this loner clearly has some financial support from an outside source.
What was he doing in New York?
God only knows. I guess just following around.
Wallace?
I'm not really sure.
All right, was the Waldorf Astoria stuff and all that jazz? All right, that was clearly before.
Yeah, it was before.
Yeah, it has to be. Right. Okay.
Yeah, he just mysteriously all of a sudden had money and bought a car and guns and all this other equipment and started staying in exclusive hotels. And the guy was a busboy. It just, you got to kind of wonder about it a little bit. Then she goes into the FBI's strange behavior. In a move reminiscent of the treatment of witnesses to the Kennedy assassination, the FBI busily instructed witnesses not to talk to the press. The FBI took possession of hotel records and instructed Waldorf Astoria hotel employees not to divulge how much Bremer paid to stay there. They told Representative Henry Royce and his aides not to divulge Bremer's responses to a questionnaire he had responded to and returned to them. Next, I wanted to go into somebody that you're familiar with, and we talked about a little bit, Richard Sprague. He talked about the Wallace assassination in The Taking of America, which came out in 1985. I got this excerpt. I remember you talking about him, and I sort of looked for him, and sure enough, he talked about the Wallace assassination and gave some very interesting information there. In 1972, the Power Control Group was faced with another set of problems. Again, the objective was to ensure Nixon's election at all costs and to continue the cover-ups. Nixon might have made it on his own. We'll never know because the group guaranteed his election by eliminating 2 strong candidates and completely swamping another with tainted leftist images and a psychiatric case for the vice presidential nominee. The impression that Nixon had in early 1972 was that he stood a good chance of losing. He imagined enemies everywhere and a press he was sure was out to get him. The Power Control Group realized this too. They began laying out a strategy that would encourage the real nuts in the Nixon administration, like E. Howard Hunt, G. Gordon Liddy, and Donald Segretti, to eliminate any serious opposition. The Dirty Tricks campaign worked perfectly against the strongest early Democratic candidate, Edmund Muskie. He withdrew in tears later to discover he had been sabotaged by Nixon, Liddy, and company. George Wallace was another matter. At the time he was shot, he was drawing 18% of the vote, according to the polls, and most of that was in Nixon territory. The conservative states, such as Indiana, were going for Wallace. He was eating into Nixon's southern strength. In April, the polls showed McGovern pulling a 41%, Nixon 41%, and Wallace 18%. It was going to be too close for comfort, and it might be thrown into the House, in which Nixon would surely lose. There was the option available of eliminating George McGovern, but then the Democrats might come up with Hubert Humphrey or someone else even more dangerous than McGovern. Nixon's best chance was a head-on contest with McGovern. Wallace had to go. Once the group made that decision, the Liddy team seemed to be the obvious group to carry it out. But how could it be done this time and still fool the people? Another patsy this time? Okay, but how about having him actually kill the governor? The answer to that was an even deeper programming job than was done on Sirhan. This time they selected a man with a lower IQ level who could be hypnotized to really shoot someone, realize it later, and not know that he had been programmed. He would have to be a little wacky, unlike Oswald, Ruby, or Ray. Arthur Bremer was selected. The first contacts were made by people who knew both Bremer and Segretti in Milwaukee. They were members of a leftist organization planted there as provocateurs by the intelligence forces within the Power Control Group. One of them was a man named Dennis Cassini. That's a pretty good explanation as to why Wallace got popped.
Yeah, and that I'm familiar with what Sprague used as the Power Control Group, because
I wasn't. I figured, that it was kind of. Well, go ahead and explain it. I'm sorry.
No, only to say that, and I'm going to find this magazine again. At least I found the titles, and I ordered quite a few articles through interlibrary loan, and that is the term that they use for handlers. That was also used by others who wrote for this particular magazine, and from which Sprague came forward with the Taking of America 1, 2, 3. So right. when I heard you say Power Control Group, I'm going, yeah, that's right, that's what they called it. See, at that time too, and I'm not saying if we knew how they felt today, I don't know if Sprague is alive. I believe he lives up in Ulster County, New York. But I would like to talk to him because I don't think they really fully understood. Not that they were by any means didn't have the necessities to understand these things. I just think that they still gave too much credit to an American government, if you know what I mean, that had gone really bad. I think they thought it was a nasty element that if you could route that out, we'd be okay. And in fact, no, we could never be okay again.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a mild criticism, and they did great work, boy, I tell you, but they did not know. I'm not saying they opened a Pandora's box, but when they went into that, I don't think they had any idea just how corrupt it was.
Right.
Thank you.
I was going to read some more from Lisa Pieces. This is another article she wrote earlier. The one that I read from before was in 2007, and she put that out when Bremer was released from prison. Just, kind of a summary of what had happened. This is called Bremer and Wallace. It's in Probe magazine. 1972 is most famous, however, for the Watergate break-in, which ultimately led to Nixon's self-removal from office. The CIA played a heavy and interesting role in both the break-in and the subsequent revelations that led to Nixon's removal. As Probe has written about it in past issues, it appears the CIA operatives deliberately got themselves caught in the Watergate hotel so as not to blow other operations. Then when Helms was removed, removing Nixon was seen as a payback. Those who most contributed to exposing Nixon's activities, such as Alexander Butterfield, James McCord, and Howard Hunt, all had relationships with the CIA. If the cumulative weight of the existence of the evidence is to be believed, it appears that the CIA ran the country's election process in 1972, deciding which candidates would survive or fail, and participating in acts of sabotage. Is it too far-fetched to suggest that they may have had an interest in controlling the political fortunes of others that year, even by such drastic means as assassination? From what we know of their presence in the assassinations of John Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, and Martin Luther King, such a suggestion can hardly be called far-fetched. Therefore, we must ask that most ugly of questions. Is there evidence of CIA involvement in the Wallace shooting? According to newspaper woman Sybil Leek and lawyer-turned-investigative reporter Bert Sugar, the answer is yes. According to Leek and Sugar, while Bremer was at the Lord Elgin Hotel in Ottawa, he met with a Dennis Cassini. Famed conspiracy researcher Mae Brussel and Alan Stang identified Cassini as a CIA operative. Cassini was found dead from a massive heroin overdose in July of 1972, just 2 months after the Wallace shooting. How interesting. Cassini had no history of drug use. Cassini's address book contained the phone number of John J. McCleary. McCleary lived in Sacramento, California, and was employed by B&T International, an import-export firm. McCleary drowned in the Pacific Ocean in the fall of 1972. His father, amazingly, had drowned around the same time in Reno, Nevada. If the CIA was somehow involved, that could explain both E. Howard Hunt's immediate interest in the case, as well as the role of CBS in filming Bremer in the act of shooting. CBS and the CIA shared a particularly close relationship. That's true. CIA involvements might go far in explaining the following connections as well. Bremer's brother, William Bremer, was arrested shortly after the Wallace shooting for having bilked over 2,000 Miami matrons out of over $80,000 by signing them up for a non-existent weight loss operation. Curiously, Bremer's lawyer was none other than Ellis Rubin, the man who had defended many anti-Castro activists and who defended the CIA men who participated at the Watergate break-in. Even more curious is Bremer's half-sister Gail's relationship with the Reverend Jerry Owen, who figures prominently in the RFK case. Owen's Bible-thumping show was canceled from KCOP in Los Angeles when evidence surfaced showing he had a possibly sinister relationship with Sirhan just prior to the assassination of Robert Kennedy. After the assassination, Owen had gone to the police with a strange tale of having picked Sirhan up as a hitchhiker. But other witnesses claim Owen had given Sirhan cash and had more of a relationship with Sirhan than he had admitted. I think you can see there that a lot of connections to the CIA, and it just seems to get thicker all the time as you look through these assassinations. More and more evidence that points to the CIA.
Well, we're told about MI5 and MI6.
Right.
How one handles exclusively domestic things. I think that's MI5.
Yeah.
MI6 takes care of international things, and of course the equivalent I would think would be the FBI and the CIA.
Yeah, I think you're right. I've thought that myself when I looked at the structure. And, really when you get down to it, the OSS was modeled upon British intelligence. The Brits went to, the American government at around the time of the Second World War and just said, hey, you people really need to get yourself together as far as intelligence. You don't have a really strong intelligence operation, and you need one. Well, we actually did have an intelligence operation in the Office of Naval Intelligence, but the British thought we needed a stronger presence, and they kind of modeled it after the British intelligence services.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone through this story about my uncle.
Yeah.
Saying what they did was treasonous, and he didn't make the jump with the OSS to the CIA. Not that I don't even know if he wanted to. It was just that he recollected, and I'm talking about. This would be like 58.
When he was talking about what we did as treasonous, I think he may have known what was going on as far as the Nazis that were being brought in.
Yep.
I think he may. I mean, that's just speculation on my part. But for him to say treasonous, that made me believe that he may have had some knowledge of that.
Well,
I'm not saying he was involved in it. Don't get me wrong. I didn't mean to insult him. I don't know the man or didn't know him.
No. And I'm not even saying that he wasn't, but that he said it in the past tense means that it had happened.
Yeah.
He said what we did was treasonous.
Right.
Now, obviously, I can't see him talking about something going on in Europe because obviously, that would not be seen as treasonous. Well, not that geographics rules all, but I think he had a feeling that, I mean, I've said it and you said the same, but I think he saw German operatives and principals being secreted over here.
Right.
And that they would go into his agency, I don't know, but certainly he used the pronoun we, which means he didn't say what they did was treasonous. He said what we did was treasonous.
Yeah.
So I mean, just based on that language, which you can call it flimsy, you can call it very indicting, depending on what stance you wanted to take. And obviously, I never forgot that. It was one of those things that just banged around in my brain. But I mean, when do you call that forth? You're 9 years old. Who gives a crap? And yet that's always stayed with me. And I think you're right. So I mean, I think he saw what was going to become the new military or the intelligence apparatus. And then there's that other whole thing that was going on at the same time. We're not going to go down there, and we don't need to. But after you get into this transition from World War II to the Cold War, you got Burnham and Kennan and these characters and Strauss creating a communist boogeyman to replace the bad old Nazis. So now, wouldn't you, as an American, be led to believe the Nazis are dead? Now we don't like the Russian bear.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect, right? Mm-hmm. Perfect. You're looking.
And they pit us against each other.
There you go.
That was their plan all along, and it worked.
So when we got into a period, from about 45 to 54, before the foolishness ended, that witch hunt, we had all Americans looking for bad old Ruskies, and the Nazis were laughing their asses off.
Oh, they fed us phony information that overinflated the strength of the Soviet war machine. They constantly did that. Galen's organization did that. Galen had every intention of setting us against the Russians. That was his game plan. That was the Third Reich's game plan at the end of the war, when they knew they were going to lose.
All right. Now, you don't have to, I don't know that you have any information there that will go this way, and we don't have to. It doesn't always have to be like that.
Yeah.
But we also can agree. Now, did you come across any information independent from what Phelps and those that we know have dealt with the Jesuits in the Vatican have offered? Separate from that, have any of the other sources talked about the Vatican's complicity?
Oh, yeah. Well, we talked about how Galen was loved by the Vatican. In fact, he was made a Knight of Malta by Pius XII. I read that last week. That's a historical fact. He was made a Knight of Malta by the Vatican and was given his knighthood from Pius XII himself. He was considered to be a wonderful person because he was such an anti-Bolshevik. And then you've got, the CIA, all of their leadership in the early years, with the exception of Allen Dulles, they were all Roman Catholic, and they were all very much involved with Vatican intelligence. And I guess you would have to say that would be the Jesuits. I don't have the information right now, but, I can tell you that's a fact. In fact, that might be a good one for us a good topic for us to discuss in the next episode or two.
Well, did you come across anything, whether it was, who's the cat that lives in Tampa, who has written a lot about this? Yeah, good. Loeffler?
Yeah.
Is that right?
I heard the name before, but I'm...
John,
you're talking about Loftus and Aaron.
Loftus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he lives in Tampa.
Yeah, Loftus talks about the complicity of the Catholic Church.
Okay.
Well, really, Viz, we talked a lot about how the Catholic Church had been the people who provided the passports and the money that got the Nazis out of Europe, the people that came here.
So, honestly, I do try to specify, and I lay that in the doorstep of the nation-state called the Vatican.
Right. They're part and parcel of it. There's several different groups involved, but they are one of the major groups involved in the New World Order and in the Nazi diaspora. It was the Vatican. Pure and simple. We've read a lot of I've read a lot of material into our little record here about that.
Right. What about what do you think the chances are the Mengele got out to?
Oh yeah,
very good.
Definitely.
Right? Okay, we're on board with that. All right.
Yeah, we know that several major Klaus Barbie got out with Vatican help. It's just on and on.
The reason I bring that up also is because one of the movies that gives you a little bit but then goes another way, there was a story to tell there, was The Boys from Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
Seemed a little far-fetched, a little at the end, but not really. And really, South America was the toehold that the Jesuits had in the Western Hemisphere. The first slavers, I believe, were Jesuits and the reduction camps in South America. Mm-hmm. And, of course, there was a heavy German influence, if you want to call it that, but Nazi definitely, as you're well aware of also.
Yeah, Lavenda writes a lot about it. He writes extensively about that. We've covered that.
Colonia Dignidad only got busted like a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And that's after he and I had done that interview. So the thing is, there is what we could call a long-standing pipeline, trade route, if you will, call it whatever you want, where this was being brought into the Western Hemisphere, and then you could, I guess in some cases, it obviously came up into North America.
Exactly.
So, just to refresh this, because sometimes, people tell you you're crazy with this stuff, and it's like, no, we really aren't.
The Roman Catholic Church is extremely powerful in Latin America, Central and South America. It's extremely powerful. It's powerful all over the world, but even more so there. It dominates, culturally, socially.
Go look at the scoreboard for how many popes visited the United States and how many went into Cuba and Mexico. Mm-hmm. We just got done with one, right? Joey Ratz did the whole routine.
Right.
And I'm
always glad to see him, too.
Y'all come back here. No, but
he looks like the evil emperor in Star Wars to me.
Yeah, half that, half Yoda. Yeah.
He scares the crap out. The guy's eyes are he's scary, man.
No, that's a suit. There's somebody else in there. There's no two. That is a suit.
There's something going down there.
Oh, yeah.
Whoever he's in contact with.
I think the same guy is also in Joel Osteen. I mean, you look at that cat, I'm like, you scare me.
Did I ever tell you the story of when I went to his church once? Oh man, that was really
because
strange.
I definitely would have ridiculed you. But by all means, feel free to share.
I got roped into it. One of those deals. I was trying to be a nice guy, and I went on.
Yeah, what was her name?
But I listened to the guy give the sermon, and he spoke for, I guess, 45 minutes.